Our nation's scrambling as US President Donald Trump announced his plans for his long-promised tariffs on automotive imports. Japan warning of a significant impact on global trade, calling the move extremely regrettable. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba says his country is putting all options on the table and reviewing an appropriate response.
アメリカに対する投資も屈指のというか1位の投資をしておると。そうだとすれば本当に全部の国同じでいいのかということはきちんと申し上げておかねばなりませんし、今までも申し上げてきたところでございます。
South Korea's auto sector also bracing for significant difficulties when these tariffs take effect. Seoul will be announcing its emergency response as well as actively engaging with Washington to explore measures on how they might minimize negative impacts on South Korean companies and suppliers. China also disagreeing with the planned US tariffs on imported vehicles, calling it a violation of the World Trade Organization's rules. Beijing arguing that no country can achieve prosperity through imposing additional tariffs. Speaking at the Boao Forum in China's Hainan province, Vice Premier Ding Xuexiang highlighted rising global uncertainties and stressed that Beijing will resolve dispute through dialogue. Many EU members, including Germany and Hungary, urging the bloc to talk to Washington about these latest tariffs on car imports. France criticizing the US for being uncooperative and that the EU could have little choice but to retaliate. Shares in European automakers and car parts manufacturers slipping following Mr. Trump's announcement. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney labelling the tariffs as a direct attack on Canadian workers, saying retaliatory measures were being considered. Mr. Carney earlier announced some $1.4 billion in its strategic response fund. This will protect Canadian auto jobs affected by tariffs from Washington. However, Mr. Trump warning that further tariffs would be imposed on the EU and Canada if they work together to do, quote, economic harm to the United States. Accounting for both cars and car parts, Mexico will take the top spot with a whopping total of $181 billion US. That's in terms of impact. It's followed by the EU, Canada, Japan, South Korea, and China. The new tariffs on car parts from Canada and Mexico are exempt for the moment, while US Customs and Border Patrol sets up a system to let it assess the duties. And we're joined by our correspondent Nick Harper reporting live from Washington, D.C. and Olly Barratt live from London. Olly, let's start with you. We have heard those random responses from Europe. Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, has also given her response to this threat of tariffs from the United States. What's likely to happen?
She has indeed, and the European position at this point is effectively to wait and see exactly how this unfolds, but to make it clear that Europe is ready to retaliate if necessary. Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, says she deeply regrets the US decision. She says that the European Union will continue to seek negotiated solutions, but making it very clear that the European Union will jointly protect its workers, businesses and consumers if required, and is considering how exactly that would take place. The European Commission Executive Vice President Teresa Ribeira making it clear that the European Union is going to see, in her words, how they are framing in exact terms these tariffs, and then be sure we respond accordingly. In trading on Thursday, European car makers and auto-related stocks very much under pressure indeed. Firms like Jeep maker Stellantis, Volkswagen, BMW, Porsche, all under significant pressure in Thursday trading. Here in the UK, a slightly distinct response in the sense that the UK Finance Minister Rachel Reeves says that the UK is not going to immediately respond to the potential of tariffs being imposed on UK car exports to the US, which are significant, but the UK is going to continue what she calls intensive discussions with the United States on a so-called economic prosperity agreement. The UK hope is that over the course of the next few days, they can reach some kind of trade deal with the United States, which might see a carve-out for the UK from some of these and other tariffs.
Nick, let's bring you in from Washington, D.C. We heard from Olly Barratt there. So if we look at shares for as one way of responding to these potential tariffs, shares as well for U.S. car makers and car parts suppliers also slipping in trade, concerns that this cost might be passed on to consumers. How have the American public and automakers reacted so far in the United States?
Well, we see Donald Trump has been speaking about what he feels the reaction is, in particular to the big three US automakers, GM, Ford and Stellantis. And he said when he was asked if they have factories here in the United States, they are thrilled. But he said if they don't, they have to get going and build them here, because if they're building them overseas and have to import them into the United States, even though they are US car makers, all of that is going to be more expensive. We've also heard from the president of the United Auto Workers Union, the biggest working union in the US for car makers, the president, Shawn Fain, saying, "We applaud the Trump administration for stepping up." He said it was a step to end the free trade disaster, and commenting that this would bring thousands of jobs back to the US. That is what Donald Trump is hoping will happen, that it will boost US manufacturing as more car makers build plants in the US. He also feels that it could bring in anywhere between $600 billion and $1 trillion in revenue just from the tariffs alone over the course of the next 2 years. But for consumers, there is a tremendous amount of skepticism, because for them, the costs will probably be passed on. Cars will become more expensive. Recent polling shows that it is an area, tariffs, that he is doing particularly badly on in terms of how the US public views Donald Trump's performance. 61% disapproving of the US president's handling of tariffs.
And just in case they need reinforcement about concern about the cost of cars, Mr. Trump's political ally Elon Musk, a political advisor actually, and also the boss of Tesla, coming out on X to say this will affect the price of parts in Tesla cars coming from other countries. The cost impact is not trivial. This coming from Elon Musk.
That's right, yeah. The impact will be felt even by the close ally, Elon Musk, of the US president. Now, they will be helped by the fact that they make the vast majority of their cars here in the US, in California and in Texas. The problem for Tesla, though, is a lot of car parts are brought in from overseas. Somewhere between 60 to 75% of all car parts are manufactured here in the US, but the rest, so around a quarter, perhaps even more, are brought in from overseas, in particular from Mexico. So that will impact the cost of Tesla vehicles. Elon Musk on X saying it will have a significant impact on the company, saying that it's important to note that Tesla is not unscathed. The cost impact is not trivial. It'll be felt by everyone, US consumers, all the way through to the billionaire Elon Musk.
Our thanks to Nick Harper. They're reporting live from Washington, D.C., and Olly Barratt from London.